Greetings, IB geography students. All right, we're going to knock this out as quick as we can. We are focusing on urban regeneration, and then we're going to look specifically at Milwaukee, first at its interstate system, as well as the Feist Reform, the home of the Bucks. All right, let's get cracking. So, urban regeneration. We've talked a little bit about it. I wish we were in class. We could spend more detail and time on it. But sport and tourism has revitalized downtown urban areas, such as the Olympics in Rome, Munich, Seoul, and Barcelona. Hopefully we'll be getting into that a little later before the semester ends. So the big question is, why do they build facilities where they do? And then we're going to look specifically at Milwaukee as a case study for that. So let's keep cooking. All right, so there's something called the multiplier effect. So when something happens, there's an effect that occurs, and that institutes another effect and so on. And so the belief is that each dollar spent on urban renewal moves from person to person, from organization to organization, through the local economy. And so at the bottom of the screen, and I will bring the little arrow here, you've got a locally owned hotel. Well, hotels need people to work there. Those folks earn a wage, which in turn they spend at stores, on home mortgages and apartment rentals, etc. So it allows for cash flow throughout the community and helps the local economy. All right. So there's a thing called a freeway, and Milwaukee has an interstate system. Interstate 94 connects Chicago to Milwaukee to Madison, and then it also has Interstate 43, which comes from the southwest, connecting Janesville to Milwaukee, and then heads north on 43 to Sheboygan and Green Bay. Now, there was a little aspect of that interstate system called the Park East Freeway that is now where the Fiserv Forum exists. It was intended to connect Interstate 43, and we'll look at that on a map in a little bit, with the lakefront. So we'll look at that in a couple of slides. Let's click away here. This was where the Feist Reform is now, quite honestly. So you can see the massive bridges here, and it's a 1-mile spur, cuts through northern part of downtown. The big rip on it was that, geez, shouldn't we have places there for people to live, for people to spend money, for people to work, instead of just having this big bridge? This is what it looked like underneath. If you follow the arrow here, the lower left part of your screen, you can see car passing through, people walking. And then this was an aerial view from the northwest. This is a good shot of downtown right here. And then again, the spur just kind of took off from I-43, which runs to Green Bay, and it went over the river and then just abruptly stopped. It was really kind of bizarre, and it ran right into a neighborhood, which was weird. All right, so wasted space, if you will. Now, the master plan was to create a high-speed option for travelers to circumvent city streets. In other words, to not have to drive in the city with stop signs and traffic lights, that they could kind of whip through the city and whip around the city. One thing I'm going to ask you to do is list 2 pros and cons of freeways. You can do a little bit of research on the internet if you don't know offhand what you might answer. This is a discussion that we would have had in class if we had class. So I would ask you to hop on the link that I will provide to indicate what 2 pros and cons you feel freeways provide. So do some digging on that. Now, in the mid-1970s, voters passed plans for freeway additions, so through several referendums. A referendum is a direct vote on a law. So instead of voting for somebody to represent you to create a law, a referendum is actually you go to the election site, the polls, and you vote specifically on whether or not you think that should pass in a law or not. So the citizens of Milwaukee passed this into law that they would create additional spurs, if you will, like this Park East Freeway. However, they ran out of funding, and some of those got away. So let's take a look at what some of those were. What had been in existence, they've got this Interstate 94 that they put in the 50s and 60s. Came from Chicago, went north through downtown and up toward Green Bay. There was also 94 would come up, and this is called 43. Interstate 94 then would jut off west toward Madison. Okay. Now what they did later on is they put in this bypass called 894, and that exists, and that actually helps a lot. So you don't have to go downtown and clog it up and then head west to Madison. You can just kind of go around the southern and western part of the city. The airport spur does exist. It was proposed here when this map was made, but it does exist. It takes you straight to the airport, which is kind of nice. Number 2 was never put in. This just connected a little spur that was north of what is now Miller Park. It would connect that over to 43 to take you to Green Bay. They ran out of money for that one. This does exist. This is now the Hone Bridge. As you follow the arrow, the Hone Bridge goes over the Summerfest grounds and takes you to the south side of town, over to the airport. This little part here, that red part, that was the part that was going to connect the spur that existed where the Feist Reform is to the lakefront, which again was kind of odd and thankfully never happened, in my opinion. And then finally they had a connector. It was going to connect 94 east-west that went from Madison to downtown Milwaukee, connected to the 894 bypass around the city. So where the arrow is right about where Miller Park is now. Previously that stadium was called County Stadium. Then they built Miller Park next to it and tore down County Stadium. But this spur connected the County Stadium area, was supposed to anyhow, to 894. Well, the city bought up most of the land here, and it was basically empty for a couple of decades. It has now since been built up. They ran out of money. They didn't make this connector, which is fine too. It now is a nice bustling commercial area on the west side, actually near West City, West Milwaukee. Commercial, condos, apartments, that sort of thing. All right, so we're going to click just so you got a lay of the land. So the Park East Spur, if it had been completed, that part that is now the Feist Reform, if that had gone all the way to the lakefront, it would have ended up near the present-day Collectivo. And that is an old water pumping station. It used to pump dirty water from the Milwaukee River into Lake Michigan and then pumped clean water from Lake Michigan into the Milwaukee River because the Milwaukee River was so filthy back in the day. So that was built over 100 years ago. It is now the Collectivo Cafe. So this is what exists now. So instead of that spur connecting I-43 to the lakefront, you now have things like this. You've got nice condominium areas, retail, that sort of thing, jobs. So somewhat bustling area of downtown. Okay. The Park East Spur demolition. So you saw those bridges before. Well, that was all torn down. And this actually used to be the Pabst Brewery. The Pabst Brewery went from Interstate 43 all the way down the Milwaukee River. It was huge, humongous, one of the largest breweries in the nation. That is another story, however. So these were kind of the plots of land where they were looking at building the Feist Reform. This was a parking lot. On the southern part of this was the Bradley Center. All right, so this is what they proposed. You can see the river is here. The Bradley Center is here. Feist Reform, you've got commercial areas built around it. So they were really looking for an economic boost for the city of Milwaukee. And then another proposal rendition there. That's coming from the northwest side of Milwaukee. A nice view of what they wanted it to look like. And here is what it looks like. So this is actually from a northeast view of the area. You've got the Feist Reform here. You've got the Bradley Center here, which is now raised. It's taken down. And then this is the old arena, which is here. And this is all new stuff, new construction. This was empty areas after they tore down the bridge for that Park East Freeway. This has now been all built up, which is great. All right. So we've got some questions we want you to answer on our review sheet first. How was the Fiserv Forum funded? Who paid for it? So I want you to come up with a few sources. We discussed this a little bit earlier in the year, but get on Google and check that out. Second thing I want you to look at for the Fiserv Forum, what are 2 ways in which it benefits Milwaukee and or the state of Wisconsin? So list those. And then finally, how else could Milwaukee have utilized the space if the Feist Reform was not constructed in its current location? So there was a good possibility the Milwaukee Bucks were going to leave. And Herb Cole, who was the former owner, he sold it to a group of owners who said, yeah, we promise to keep it here as long as we get a stadium. But if the Bucks wouldn't have stayed, what else could we have done with that space? So I want you to think about that and give me your reflections on it. So that is it. I hope you enjoy this and give it some good thought. This is some good stuff that we're diving into here. Hope you're all staying safe, staying healthy. I miss you guys so much. And let me know if you have any questions. Email, text. I am here to help. All right, guys. Take care.